Welcome to the Sparkit podcast. I'm your host, Miss Kimaru, and I'm joined by our in-house political commentator, that is Emmanuel Taban. Emmanuel, Happy New Year!
Happy New Year to you, Kimaru. Good to be back after a very long time on this Pocket podcast.
I know it's been a while, and
Yeah,
also it's a new year. I'm super excited to see what 2026 has for us. And
mhm.
to our listeners and viewers, Happy New Year to you too, or to you, honestly. And I hope 2026 started on a high note for you. And today, we are going to dive into a very hot topic. The internet was shut down in Uganda. What was your first reaction, honestly, Emmanuel?
I think I've been expecting this.
Mhm.
It didn't take me by surprise because when Uganda had the elections in 2021, uh,
Mhm.
the same incident happened. They had the previous election held on the 14th of January, and then on
Mhm.
the 13th, the internet was shut down temporarily, and then it was reinstalled. It was reopened on the 18th of January.
Okay.
So I think I was expecting the same thing. And
Mhm.
yesterday, when the Ugandan Communication Commission issued out a letter uh, to all the chief executive officers for the mobile providers companies in Uganda, I mean, like it
Mhm.
didn't take me by surprise. So when I received the news, when I read it on the media that the internet would be shut down at 6 p.m. So it wasn't a surprise. What I expected that would always happen. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, for
Mm.
me, I was kind of thinking, oh, not again, another African country because of what happened in Tanzania.
Right.
And then it kind of made me think about accountability, transparency, and just letting people know exactly what is happening on the ground. Because I kind of feel like it kind of shuts people out, especially even from outsiders. If you wanted to have like election observation or whatever, you can't get even updates on what is happening, which is, according to me, it's kind of sad and it deters a lot. But now, since it's like the second time happening, but I would kind of also feel, in my personal experience, I would say, with been a bit of awakening in recent years. Of course, if even if they did shut it down in 2021, but the awakening that has been going on, the political awakening that has been going on around the world, would be something maybe if Ugandans had been given an opportunity to have a say of whether it should be shut down or not, they would have probably been like, no, we want it up and we want to tell our stories just the way they are. And probably they have received a bit of awakening because it's something that has been happening in different countries and all that. So it's one of those things you're like, I wouldn't want this to be happening in my country.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
Yeah.
kind of sad. Yeah,
Mm.
but what do you think? Do you think like now for Ugandans, for example, do you think it's something now, it's a phenomenon they're used to, or it's something they would want to see changed?
Um, I think for the case of Ugandans, this has been happening for, I think, if not the last three or two election cycles that happen in Uganda.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever
Mm-hmm.
the country is nearing the election day, the internet is shut down, and I feel that Ugandans have normalized it. So it becomes like something that is normal every time when the country heads towards an election, the internet is shut down, and it feels like they're just taking it as something normal. But I have a feeling that this time around it's a kind of different because just like you've
Mm-hmm.
said, we have had similar incidents happen across the world, not only in Africa, but even in other
Mm-hmm.
continents. We've had a
Mm-hmm.
similar incident happen in Kenya that was mainly as an influence of social media and kind of the government trying to suppress the people and not giving them the freedom of access to information or express themselves. We have seen it
Mm-hmm.
happen in Tanzania during election, an incident similar to the one that is happening in Uganda. We have seen a protest happening in Madagascar as a result of government repression as well. And then out of the continent, we've also seen one that happened in Nepal. And the one that happened in Nepal was mainly because the government had shut down the social media platform, just like the one happening in Uganda right now. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel this year's suspension is a kind of bit different because majority of Ugandans, I think, they will pick a leaf from all this that might have happened in Kenya, in Tanzania, and they might be kind of resistant this time around. And I really don't think if this time they'll just keep quiet. So
Mhm.
because of the incident that happened around around the, I mean, the continent, and across the continent, um, we're likely to see that this might not be treated by Ugandans as something normal, though they have been normalizing it all the previous years. But I'm seeing that this one might be a little bit different. We might see some kind of resistance from the common people in the next few hours, probably tomorrow when the election day starts. Yeah.
Do you think there could be something like, okay, you've shut down the internet, but people still have access to cell phones? You can take videos, you can literally document the whole process if you wanted to. Do you think right now Uganda could actually be going through a process where they gag people to the extent of maybe you're not allowed to record the election process?
I think they can't do that. It's hard to. I mean, they can control the internet, but
Mm-hmm.
they can't control people recording what is happening, right? So
Mm-hmm.
because we all know how the internet operates, so uh, all the mobile network operators in Uganda, and the internet service providers, they're all under the government entity, that's the Ugandan Communication Commission, and they are regulated by that entity. And
Mm-hmm.
whatsoever regulations that the entity comes with, these companies have to follow. But I think it's going to be hard for the country to stop Ugandans from recording using their cell phones, because all they need to have is just have power, charge their phones, and then go and record incident. And even when the internet is restored, they can still go on and post all these that happen. But I think the major intention of the government in shutting down the internet is just to reach that end of maybe announcing the results. When that is done, I think they will restore it, because there's nothing you can do after that. When they declare Museveni is the president, just like what happened in the previous election, there's nothing you can do about that. So I think the main reason why they are doing this, according to me, is to prevent that incident, or that moment of Museveni being announced as the winner. It's just to prevent that. So, but after he's announced and they can restore back, and they don't care if people go on and post whatsoever happened. I don't think they do care. Yeah.
Do you think this is an infringement on freedom of speech for Ugandans?
I think so. It is. Most of the constitutions of countries,
Mm-hmm.
Uganda included. Uganda had their 1995 constitution, and in that constitution they have like the civil liberties, where it gives you the freedom to express yourself, access to information, where you can access in whatsoever way you want. You can share your information in whatsoever. So shutting down the internet is, I think, a very critical violation of that liberties, that constitution that guaranteed Ugandans. There's
Mm-hmm.
no reason why you're going to shut down the internet if you have a platform to conduct a free and fair election. So I think the suspension of the internet is a very clear infringement of the civil liberties that are supposed to be given to all Ugandans enshrined in their constitution. It is a violation of their constitution itself.
And I
Yeah.
also think, to add on to your point, like what I would say, leaders should kind of understand that it's not always about them. It's about the people. Like, people hold so much power, and I kind of think that African leaders or leaders around the world, they are also awakening up to the fact that people now know what their rights are, and which is why people like Uganda or the president of Uganda, they can choose to, like, okay, let's shut down the internet. But sometimes I kind of wonder also, for how long? For how long can you do something like that? As you've said, if somebody records a video and internet is restored, even if it's 1 month from now, if we needed like evidence of what really happened in Uganda, for example, whether the election was free and fair, or maybe if there was any mishappenings, if somebody recorded it, the world will still see it. And that is what also again happened in Tanzania. Despite the fact that the government like shut down, the CNN documentary was made possible because people had their cell phones and people took like, they took it up to them to make sure that, okay, you cannot allow a journalist to come here, but I'm gonna tell my story, and you're infringing on my rights. People are dying, and this is the reality on the ground. And I think like elections are a very critical moment for information flow, but shutting down the internet for people, and so close to voting day for Ugandans, it kind of denies them the access to facts, how to verify information, what's happening from one. I don't know whether they have provinces or states, from one place to
Districts.
another. Or they have districts, yes, exactly. So you're preventing people from knowing like what's happening in one district, uh even if it's that information, the data, like, is it really free and fair? And for young people who rely heavily on digital platforms like social media platforms, um and for engagement, expression, and telling their real stories, how does this shutdown, for example, reflect on them directly and their participation in a democratic process?
I mean, just like I said, um, the shutting down of the internet is a very clear violation. It's taking
Mm,
out the rights from these people, and as a citizen, you have a responsibility. You have the constitutions provide that you have a responsibility to play as a citizen, and one of your
yeah.
responsibilities is to go and you can participate in elections, and you can participate in whatsoever way you want. You can go and vote for the person you want, but also you're going to make sure that you're going to protect the vote that you've actually casted. So you
Mm-hmm,
are going to protect that by making sure that you're going to be maybe at the polling station, making sure that the results that are when they are counting the papers, the ballot papers, it is actually done in the right way. And one way you could do that for accountability purpose is to have access to internet and just make the world know about it. So and I think that that is really really it's unwanted in a democratic state. I mean, if
mm-hmm,
you really know that you have a platform to exercise, I mean, for exercising like free and fair election, then you
yeah.
shouldn't be that desperate to shut down the internet. That clearly tells us of what level of democracy Uganda has now. So if you hear
Mm-hmm,
people telling you that maybe Uganda is not a democracy, it's a dictatorship, then I think you shouldn't be very quick to say maybe no, it's not. So I mean, you should be very slow to say that because I mean, all signs indicates that this is
mm-hmm,
not a democracy. I mean, people are not given the chance to go and exercise their rights peacefully. The rights
mm-hmm,
to access to information and even share information in whatever way they want. It's not provided to them. So I think to the young Ugandans, they probably know the state of the country that they live in today, and they
mm-hmm.
have the best definition of it. If it's a democracy or a dictatorship, they have the best definition for it. But to me, I think with all what is happening, that is not what a democracy does. So
Yeah.
it is not. Mhm.
And also, it kind of reminds me in 2007 during the elections at Bomas of Kenya. This was not necessarily the internet, because at that point, I don't think there was, Kenya was big on internet at the time. But during the election counting at Bomas of Kenya, the lights went off, and people claimed there was rigging during that period where, like, where were the lights? There was no power at that point. Yeah, so it kind of, it's sort of like a deja vu moment when now people are cut off from like accessing that. Like now, actually now, kind of that takes me to the next question: how can an election be transparent if now that the world is so connected and we rely on information or maybe finding these things online? How can it be transparent when you don't actually allow that process to happen?
I mean,
Transparency.
it's impossible that we can have a very I mean, the fastest step of
Hmm.
making this election not transparent is the step taken by the government to shut down the internet. That
True.
is one clear move that has actually shown the world that The election that is
Mm-hmm.
about to happen tomorrow is not going to be in a very transparent manner because, you know, some of the reasons why the government claims behind them shutting down the internet is that they want to mitigate the rapid spread of misinformation, disinformation, and election fraud and incitement of violence, which would affect
Mm-hmm. Oh
public order.
wow.
These are some of the reasons why they are saying. But I mean, like, in fact, if you have social media provided, the best way you can have like a transparent election is when you have these platforms provided, so people
Mm-hmm.
get to go live and even go on the polling station. They see exactly what is happening in the parts of the country. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, clearly, this is not going to be a very transparent election because the first signal that indicates that is the step taken by the
Mm-hmm.
government to shut down the internet temporarily. So these,
Mm-hmm.
so many people might claim that this is the same thing. You know, in the previous election, even before Bobi Wine, there used to be a very strong opposition leader called Kiza Besigye, who is right now in prison. Kiza used
Mm-hmm.
to be one of the most toughest guy who gives President Museveni sleepless nights. But then
Mm-hmm.
in one of the elections, in fact, they said he had won, but Museveni somehow decided to be declared the winner. And
Mm-hmm.
over and over again in the subsequent elections, so many people say Museveni has always been rigging the election, he has not been winning. So, with again
Mm-hmm.
this step that he has taken, I mean, clearly tells he's going to make a repeat of what happened previously. And you know,
Yeah.
when people always accuse you of being a thief, then I think it wouldn't look good for you to
Mm-hmm.
involve yourself in activities that are of someone who's a thief, because the more you do
Yeah.
that, the more you
Mm-hmm.
actually confirms that you're a thief. So I think that that is one thing that the government has failed to do with. If they had wanted to have like a very transparent election in a free and fair, then they shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
have shut down the internet. Shutting down the internet sends a very wrong information, not only to
Mm-hmm.
Ugandans but to the international community that something is about to happen that is not uh, going to be credible in these elections.
Yeah. And I think that now goes to the idea of public trust. If you don't allow us to see what is happening or to query the information we get from different polling stations, then where is the public trust? Why should we as a public, or maybe why should Ugandans trust the results that will come from the outcomes of those election? And also that there's something you've talked about, going live. It has
Yeah,
reminded me that nowadays, as long as you have like I think 1,000 followers on TikTok, people can go live and
exactly.
be recording. Do you think that could be like the future of something like elections, where you have young people going live in a polling station? They're like, yes, here we are, they're counting. Just in case, for example, I actually now see, to your point, why shutting down the internet matters to some of these leaders. Because imagine if somebody like Emmanuel is somewhere in a polling station in, somewhere like where it's somewhere in a district in Uganda, and he's recording and the votes are being counted. And if there were 100, he has said on the live it's 100, and you
Yeah.
want to go and probably change the outcomes. Do you think that could be actually a good idea in the long run for outcomes of an election?
I think that is this what we call like, we always take like the people's they call it there's a what they call people's journalism or what, where
Mm,
I mean, like, people just want things to be done in, I mean, if I'm a president and I know that the election is going to be done in a free and fair, I mean, I don't have to care about people going there to take live videos because I know things are going to
true.
be done right anyways. So
Mm,
why should I get worried of one thing? I mean, trying to prevent people from going live, but that could even be the best way of making things in a very transparent way. I mean, people
mhm,
knows this is the exact number of the votes that one got from this polling station and the other one and the other one. People can just like go and add them up and see what results it brings. But I think whereas that might not, it could be the best way of which it creates more trust on the process.
mhm.
I mean, young people get to know about, because you know young people always engage in social media and they know they like
Mhm,
using it in that way. So I feel that could be the best way if we really want
mhm.
to create trust in the people and in the systems and in the process like an election. Then that would be the best way to do things, right? It's like in an
Mm-hmm.
open, transparent way where everyone goes home after the result and they're satisfied that indeed this
Yeah.
person has won, this one has failed.
Mm-hmm.
And people don't
Mm-hmm.
have to get angry when they get home. They know why they lose the election because this person has got more votes than the other. There's clear
Mm-hmm.
indication there is no incidents of rigging of anything. I mean, stealing votes. There's nothing that happens.
Yeah.
So that could be the best way if people really wants to create a very good trust. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, and now that to just echo what you said, the question would be like, what is this that President Museveni is so afraid of? Like, make it make sense.
Uh, I mean, President Museveni has been in power for quite long. I mean, this is going to be his seventh term.
Oh wow.
It's going to be his seventh term. Got into power
Mm,
since 1986.
that's a long
So
time.
yeah, and so many people seems to have gotten tired of Museveni. Right? It is very
Mm-hmm.
clear that people are tired of Museveni. Even those who are his supporters, they have really gotten tired of him. Right? And not because maybe he's not doing right, but when something happens over and over again, it becomes monotonous and people really would
Yeah.
want to see something new, right? So
Mm-hmm.
President Museveni, in my view, fears that if Uganda is really going to have like a very going to go into an election in a very credible, free and fair manner, there are high chances of him not winning, right? I mean, we have seen
Mm-hmm.
this. I don't know if you've been following the Ugandan campaign rallies, but you can
Mm-hmm.
see the kind of support that the opposition is getting, especially
Yeah.
I
Good
mean, Bobi
numbers.
Wine, from all
Mm-hmm.
regions, from all districts. He's getting the support. And people argue that if Museveni and Bobi Wine are provided in a platform where an election is done in a free and fair manner, then
Then yeah.
Wine will
Yeah.
always win that election. So I think that is the fear of Museveni, that if it is done
Mm-hmm.
in that way, then he will probably not have time to, he will not win that election. So that is where his fear, I think, is derived from. The fear of
Mm-hmm.
losing and the fear of, I mean, seeing that if things are done that way, then obviously majority of the votes are going to go to the opposition. And this is someone who has been staying in power for quite long. He's used to
Mm-hmm.
power. How I mean, he's used to how sweet power is, and it will be very hard for him
Yeah.
to give up. It will be very hard.
But I also wonder for how long, I mean, if from 1986 he's been in power, how long should actually a leader be in power? It doesn't make sense. It kind of feels like the best leadership is the one that keeps transitioning from one hand to the other or whatever. It kind of feels like you need to give people a break and allow them to experience the leadership of another person, because and I think we've talked about this in the past on this particular podcast, about the idea of, okay, if he feels he's so good for Uganda, then what happens eventually when he has to get out of Uganda, as in out of the whatever the presidency? Would he leave Uganda maybe in a stable way, or because of the way he's so used to that power, there'll be power struggles, and then it takes Uganda a couple years to recover? Or how does that look like for Uganda? Because for him it's like he has never given Ugandans an option to actually think like there's another person we can actually work with. And right now there could be a 30 something year old who was born when Museveni was in power and still in
Yeah,
power. It's
yeah,
quite a sad thing. And now
exactly.
that sorry. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I'll say exactly. That's right. Mm.
Yeah, and that kind of takes me to the idea of accountability. When you shut down the internet, there's also we talked about transparency, but also it boils down to also accountability. How are you going to be accountable to people who is benefiting from this whole thing, and how does that affect people eventually in the context of accountability and knowing that we had a free and fair election?
Uh, I mean, like I think really some of these principles of things to do with accountability, I don't think if they really do matter to people like Museveni. I mean, they don't really care what people will say about them. All they need is just to win. That's all, and they will take whatsoever step they can to make sure that they win. And it doesn't matter how it's gonna affect the people. You
Mm-hmm.
know, they don't really care so much about these principles of accountability, having credible elections, all these that don't really matter to them a lot. It really don't matter
Mm-hmm,
to them, and all they're looking for is just to have the win on their side, and that's it. Call it a day. And
mm-hmm,
no matter what you want to say, I mean, we have seen an example of what happened in Tanzania, in a very serious country. I mean, the
mm-hmm.
president of, we wouldn't be having the current president of Tanzania as a president installed.
Yeah.
No,
Mm-hmm,
yeah, probably will have I mean, the results will be contested, taken to maybe the judicial. They will go and petition it, and then ask the court. The court would nullify it, and Uganda. I mean, Tanzania would have gone back to another election. I mean, like, but that didn't happen. That didn't happen, and this is a common trend that is happening in the African continent.
mm-hmm,
People really don't
mm-hmm.
care about what the common citizen or the common people tells them. They really care.
Yeah.
What they want
Mm-hmm,
is what matters to them, and this is what exactly what President Museveni is doing. He doesn't matter. He doesn't care what people would say about him. He doesn't care about accountability and all other principles of good governance. They don't really care
yeah.
about it. What they want is they want the power just for themselves, and that's all.
So it's no longer a leadership for the people by the people. It's not.
It is
It's
not
more of there's some element of maybe I would say dictatorship or
exactly.
something.
Yeah, I would say
Hey,
so.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, honestly, it's a weird thing to be happening in 2026, honestly. It feels like are we in 1990?
Yeah, it looks weird. I know.
And then, so for a Ugandan, do you think like for them they would probably be feeling that it's justified regardless of what the government tells them? Do you think if you were in their shoes, they would feel justified to for the internet to be shut down? And also, what was my question? Okay, answer that one first, and then I'll remember.
I think Museveni
Mm-hmm.
supporters, those who support him,
Mm-hmm.
always say that
Ah,
there is a very good justification for that because they know
nice.
the impact that.
Mm-hmm.
So those who support Museveni uh,
Mm-hmm.
always say, yeah, there's justification for that because they don't want like people to have like a disorder. I mean, they would go probably incite violence when the internet is there. People will provide wrong information about the results and all this.
Mm-hmm.
So to supporters of Museveni, they always see a justification for that, shutting down the internet. But which is on the other hand, people who are on the opposition, they don't see any reason why that should have been done. So there's no
Yeah.
justification for that. For the
Mm-hmm.
opposition, all they see is that it's someone who just fear losing, and that's someone who knows that he's going to lose if they are uh, given like go into an election in a
Yeah.
very credible manner. So that is the contrast. So the section of Ugandans who are supporters of Museveni, I've always said there's justification for that, but then
Mm-hmm.
those who are in the opposition, they don't see any justification. So that's how divided Ugandans are. Yeah, but all in all, I don't think there is justification for shutting down an internet in whatsoever uh,
Mm-hmm.
manner. I mean, we have so many institutions. If you're talking about things to do with uh, incitement of violence, we have so many law enforcement agencies. We should have done that to make sure that violence that don't
Mm,
spread in a process like this. We have the police.
yeah,
We have if things goes worse, we have the military. You can do that. Bring the military after a court order, maybe deploy them in order to bring calm to the
yeah.
country. The police is there, but then
Mhm.
they decided to go for the internet because they know how powerful the internet is. Yeah,
And I think to summarize what you're saying, it's about if the government can decide to use the structures that are in place, whether it's the police force, the military, or even when they talk about like misinformation, there's a way you can verify information. Like
exactly,
they invest in how to people can verify information, then it's a better way to mitigate all these issues rather than shutting down the internet. But for them, it's like they're choosing to take the shortcut instead of
exactly,
developing structures that would help them have free, fair, and credible elections. And that even comes now, for me, I now wonder what's the need of having elections if there's no transparency, it's not free, it's not fair, there's no accountability. It's like, it's like just, it doesn't matter. It's like what happened in Tanzania. Like, how can you say you actually garnered 98% of the votes and that those ones were counted manually in a day or two, and that's like more than 30 something million votes. It doesn't make sense. It
exactly,
beats logic.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and the democratic process. I don't know. Eh,
that's right.
so, do you think now, from what Uganda is going through, do you really think they're experiencing democracy or it's a dictatorship?
Just like I said, I mean, like if we look at the democracy, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I know there are section of Africans who really don't agree to the idea of democracy. They look at it
Yeah.
as a westernized kind of stuff. I mean, and but if we look from the lenses of where it is created,
Mm-hmm.
Western standards, I mean, there are principles of democracy. I know so many countries wants to be a democracy, and they seems to love all the principles that come along with the democracy. And when
Yeah.
we look at democracy, it has principles. When we're looking
Mm-hmm.
at them, we're looking at the principles of accountability. We're looking at things to do with giving freedom of expression to people, where people
Mm-hmm.
get to, I mean, express themselves in whatsoever way they want, where
Mm-hmm.
they can communicate and associate with whosoever they want to. And when we see that some of these principles are lacking, of course, it makes that not a democracy. It makes it sort of that. So if you want to give an answer of whether Uganda is a democracy or not, then you should see if some of the um, principles that are embedded in democracy, if they are so practiced in Uganda, then that will give you a very good definition of whether Uganda is a democracy or not. Is there a way of
Not.
accountability? Is there freedom given to people? Do they exercise their freedom freely without being interrupted? Can they go and associate with whosoever they want without being tortured or imprisoned? So
Yeah.
that clearly will tell us if Uganda is a democracy or not by just seeing if some of these principles are applied in the country.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. And looking back, the other time me and you were discussing the headline that the Standard had put after the elections in Tanzania, they put Suluhu, Ruto, and
Oh
and
yeah,
Museveni on the same headline. I think it was tyranny of something.
Trinity of
So
Trinity of
Trinity of
something or of tyranny, Trinity of
yeah,
tyranny, I think.
Trinity of tyranny.
Yeah.
So it looks like with the kind of trends that is happening now, there was Uganda, and there was Tanzania, and now there's the shutdown in Uganda. Do you think that in other African countries they might follow suit? Like this might become something that African leaders now borrow and execute in their own countries during elections?
You know what someone said, that the easiest thing
Mm-hmm.
or something that can easily spread,
Mm-hmm.
dictatorship is spread so easily compared to
Mm-hmm.
democracy. So when we, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like, it's very easy for it to spread, and we have seen
Mm-hmm.
already how it happened in Kenya during the protests, how the
Yeah.
civilians were handled. I mean, some of them were killed during the protest, but there's no
Mm-hmm.
accountability for that up to now. I don't think if there's any of these military men
No.
arrested and taken
No.
to face the law. No, we have seen
Mm-hmm.
the same thing happening in Tanzania. Tanzania has never experienced this, by the way. It's only
Mm-hmm.
of recent that we have seen it last year. And then again, the same thing is repeating in Uganda. This has been happening for quite long. So this clearly tells us that probably in the next few years, we are likely to see some incidences happen in other African countries. We have seen this
Mm-hmm.
happen so many times. And just like I said, the easiest thing to spread like wildfire is
Yeah.
dictatorship. It's easy to spread it. So we are likely to see this repeat itself in other African continents if we are not serious as the citizens
Mm-hmm.
and common people to make sure our rights are protected. So we might see
Yeah.
this repeat in other African countries. Mhm.
And now you follow Kenyan politics a lot. From your analysis of the political climate in Kenya, and now that you're also heading to an election next year, the same question: do you think there's a likelihood, like on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely is Kenya going to be shut down? How likely do you think we can be shut down
Um,
also in the context of internet?
I think Kenya, like
Mm-hmm.
honestly, I mean, Kenya, like it's a country on its own. I mean, like
Mm-hmm.
you can't shut down internet in Kenya and you expect Kenyans to just sit at home and feel comfortable. No, I don't think they will do that. Kenyans will
Mm-hmm.
always put up the decent kind of resistance. They will resist that. However much the government will shut them down, try to suppress
Mm-hmm.
them, but they will always stand go on the street. And that is the
Mm-hmm.
difference between Kenyans and the rest of Africans, I see. I mean, they have that confidence to stand up and go and ask for what belongs to them. They do have that,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel is lacking in so many other African countries. So
Mm-hmm.
and we might see that happen. I mean, the other revelations that came that during the protests in Kenya, there were actually moves by some individuals to slow down the internet. That
Oh
happened.
yeah, it did
So
lag.
we might see that happen in Kenya, but I don't see that if it happens, then Kenya would just sit comfortably and watch the government do that. They'll probably
Mm-hmm.
stand up and go and protest in the streets. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
difference between Kenya. And I feel that, I mean, to be really a president of Kenya is not an easy thing. You
Mm-hmm.
have like a very, I mean, very literate people who forms the population. I mean, Kenya has a very good number of educated people, and they, when you're
Yeah.
educated, you get to know about what your rights are.
Your rights.
You know your constitution, you're exposed to it, you
Mm-hmm.
know what you deserve. And therefore
Mm-hmm.
it's very hard to deal with people who are land, right? Educated people, it's really really hard. So
Mm-hmm.
you're not going to, and it's not that even these people who are government are much more smarter than those who are just ordinary people. Sometimes the smartest minds in Kenya are the ones that are just sitting at home, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why when you see these platforms in Kenya, you see people speaking, young people speaking very great things that are even equivalent of what these people occupying these public positions are saying. Even some of them do better things than them. So I
Mm-hmm.
don't think if this happen in Kenya, they will just sit. They won't do that. I mean,
Yeah.
they're not going to just sit down and let their government do that. No. Even if the government has the intentions of shutting down the internet, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're also going to face it from the Kenyan.
Yeah.
They're going to face it rough.
The people.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
honestly agree with you. I think even if they attempted something like that, there'll be resistance. So it won't just be like one of those things that you are like, okay, it's okay.
Yeah.
Interesting, interesting. And now, maybe winding up this particular episode, what does the future look like for Ugandans or even democratic processes in the context of elections when leaders think that it's okay to shut down the internet or maybe accountability processes or not set up structures that can actually allow for accountability and processes? What do you think is the future?
I think as long as we have the current regime in Uganda, we will continue to see the same things happening over and over again.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
there must be a deliberate move by someone who is a leader of a country to make sure these things are stopped. And
mm-hmm.
we have seen it happen so many times, not once, not twice, but over and over again. So if we want to see that this is stopped, then probably we need to have like a new person in that position. So, but Ugandans know why probably they are going back to vote for Museveni. But if
Mm-hmm.
they are voting for him, probably they are comfortable with what is happening. They are comfortable with the internet being shut down. But yes, if we
Yeah.
want to have Uganda a democratic state, then we need to, I mean, stop doing some of these things. Instead of shutting down the internet as a way of mitigating misinformation, use some of the institutions. We have institutions that can, I mean, do what they can. They can do fact checking. They can make sure
Mm-hmm.
that we have the right information spread. That we have even the right sources of information that the public, I mean, is encouraged to get information from them, not just any other person. If you
Yeah.
plan that you want to mitigate the spread of violence in the country, we have institutions of government. Uh, we have the national police service, we have the military, we have other special forces in the country that their role is to make sure that there is no violence in the country. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of shutting down the internet, why not use these institutions? So we have every single thing. We even do have laws on how information is supposed to be spreaded to different parts of the country. We have uh, probably Uganda has an act on public order. I mean, how people are supposed to operate in public. So instead of using the internet as a, I mean, just shutting down the internet, they could have used all these provisions and make sure that the same purpose, I mean, the same, they can still attain the same reason for shutting down the internet. So I think to have a very democratic Uganda, then they need to have
Mm-hmm.
maybe a change of government. That's what I would say.
Wow.
Or if Museveni will change his mind and now say, this is not what I want to do, he need to step up and change what he has been doing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
Mhm.
wow. And that makes a lot of sense, honestly. It's like for them to experience change, as you said, there has to be transition. Like they have
exactly.
to transition from Museveni, what they've been used to for the longest, and then maybe something else might change. And I remember there was a clip I saw a while back. Museveni was telling them, just one last time,
Yeah.
just vote me one last time. Do you think this could be his last time, or he's just lying to the
I
voters?
mean, like, if
Mm-hmm,
I Museveni, and I'm very quite sure that he's going to win. It's not. I mean, in any whatsoever way, but I'm very sure that he's going to be declared the president. And
mm-hmm,
but also we have seen similar people like him who getting old and how their their power ended. I mean, we
mm-hmm.
have seen that with Robert Mugabe, and then of Zimbabwe when he got like to
Yeah.
92 years old, and
Mm-hmm,
then like when you reach that age, you become so weak, and even you start
mm-hmm.
losing people who are your close associate, people who you were depending on them, they start deserting you. And I
Yeah.
think even if Museveni wins this, I don't think if there is any, if he will actually go beyond uh, this election. I feel this could be, if he's declared the president, this could be the end of his regime after these 5 years, probably because his age might not favor him in the next coming elections. And
Mm-hmm,
yeah, but yeah, that's what I'm seeing. But also, it's much more. I mean, as you grow older, I mean, you get to lose support of the people, even those close to you. They start looking at their
mm-hmm,
self-interest because they know that after some time, this person is going to be normal. So people started re-strategizing on how they can survive in your absence.
mm-hmm,
So probably they'll start
mm-hmm.
aligning themselves to new political parties, to new political waves, so that when you die or when you no more in the politics of the country, they can still have that ground to survive on their own. So
Yeah.
I think he's in a very bad stage right now. He might survive this election, but he won't survive the next one. Yeah.
Oh wow. That
Yeah.
kind of makes sense. And I think it kind of summarizes this particular episode because I
Mhm.
believe that if he survives this one, by the next one, Ugandans would have really been fed up and they'd be probably be calling for change. So there's really no shortcut for him at the end of the day. At some point, power has to probably just pass to the next person. Yeah, you can't remain in power forever. Thank you,
Right.
Emmanuel, for joining us for this particular episode and for sharing your insights. It's amazing. I really pray and hope that everything turns out well for Ugandans.
Mm.
And despite the internet shutdown, or even the idea that the elections might not be free and fair, that they might actually make peace with whatever happens, the outcomes, and then maybe in the future maybe things can get better and they can transition from this particular leadership to the next, and eventually they get to experience a democratic process in their country in the context of elections. For our listeners and viewers, thank you for supporting this packet podcast. I'm your host Kimaru. Until the next one, bye.
Thank you, Kamal. Bye. Thank you.